Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Meyers.
Welcome into a very special championship preview edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. We have a lot to get to tonight. It is not only our championship preview edition, but we have a special guest joining myself and Dan Flickinger, the usual co-host. Now it is a triumvirate with Sean Benjamin, the analyst for the Penn-Trafford Warriors during their playoff run the last couple of weeks, a former coach with Penn-Trafford as well. He's been all around Westmoreland County in various coaching capacities. Sean, thank you for doing this. I've always wanted another Sean to join me on this show, so I'm glad to have you back. Get your expert analysis, especially with Penn-Trafford. I know we have a lot to talk about regarding the Warriors. We're going to hear from their head coach, John Ruane, in just a little bit. Also, Matt Humbert of the Belle Vernon area Leopards, as BVA will also be playing for a championship. But right off the bat, obviously the game that we were really focused on last week, one that we had a broadcast of, Penn-Trafford 24, Pine Richland 6 in the 5A semifinals. Guys, you were both there. What a great environment at Gateway. And for Penn-Trafford, I'll be honest, I didn't think that this team was going to be playing for a championship when I saw them about 2 months ago, back-to-back losses. They have come a long, long way.
Well, I think what the most impressive thing is, Sean, is their offensive line and their defensive lines. They were, again, dominant against Pine Richland, which I think was a big challenge for them because, Declan Ochendowski told me before the game that this is going to be our most physical offensive and defensive lines we're going to go up against all year. And I think they wore them down by the end of the game. In the second half, Sean Benjamin, we saw what happened in the second half. Cade Yacomelli, who obviously had a huge game, and he was great as well. But he was able to find those seams, and the offensive line just kept kind of grinding. And then, of course, defensively, they made some big stops in the first half. And Dan Tarabrella had a huge game for PT. I want to give him a shout out because I don't know that he's talked about enough. He actually leads the Warriors in tackles. He blocked a field goal. He was all over the place for the Warriors last week. But I think that was the most impressive thing, Sean Benjamin, with the way that PT played in the trenches. We thought that that's what the game would come down to. And I think it certainly did.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. We talked about it from the beginning. In the first play, it kind of started off with the Yacomelli, putting it on the turf. It pinned him down deep, but the Warrior defense stood tall, and that's where it started to shift. You saw it shift there. Warriors had a tough possession. The second possession, kicked it back. Pine Richland made a drive again. The Warriors stood tall, and I think the more and more the game went, it wore them down, and it definitely they took over.
And I know that the head coach for Pine Richland, Coach Campos, said after the game that, they had some injuries up front and that type of thing. Listen, I'm sorry. Pine Richland has so much depth that their second string guys are almost as good as their first string guys. So I'm not going to consider that too much when talking about the way that the Warriors ground them down because, Pine Richland always has guys that can just, next man up mentality. They always say that. I think with Pine Richland, that's certainly true. So I'm not taking anything away from the Warriors there. I'm not saying Coach Campos was, but I saw that quote and I was like, okay, maybe you did have some guys out and maybe the second stringers aren't quite as good as the first stringers, but come on. With Pine Richland, they have a ton of depth. So I'm not taking anything away from Penn-Trafford's performance in that game. And again, just the way that you mentioned Cade Yacomelli fumbling on the first play. He said, some things to Hannah that then he said he wanted to keep it PG after the game or whatever. He said that he was not very happy that he put the ball on the ground, but the way that he was able to come back is impressive. And I think I mentioned this on last week's show. Penn-Trafford has basically two guys that touch the ball on offense on a consistent basis, and not even consistent basis. No one else really touches the ball very often. And to see what they do, it's a credit to those two guys, talking about Carter Green and Cade Yacomelli, and of course the H-backs, the fullbacks, and the offensive line.
Yeah, the offensive line and H-backs, tight ends, they're all very important and big, and it showed today when the all-conference list came out today, a lot of linemen on there, a lot of, H-backs, tight ends, and it shows because those two guys, they accounted for 36 carries the other night. And, they were the only two to touch the ball, like you said. So, and then Green threw the ball 7 times. So, Yakimelli caught 2. The only other one to touch the ball was Tommy Kalkstein, 2 catches. Other than that, it was Carter Green and Kate Yakimelli, and they did a phenomenal job.
And Sean, I want to get your perspective on this, and Dan, you can chime in as well. When I go back and think of some of the past teams for Penn-Trafford, really great teams, and I compare maybe some of the skill position players to the team that they have this year, I keep saying they don't have as many weapons, but what makes this team so special? What has allowed them to get back to a championship when maybe they don't have all the skill guys as some years past?
I think it's the offense and defensive line. I really do. They have some true grit. They really get after it up front. Like we look at a team like Pine Richland, like we're talking about, they lose a guy that Jalen, I forget his last name right now, but he's 6'5", 265, and they pop in a guy that's 6'7", 260. I mean, so they, like Dan said, they just go right down the line and they just refill. So, but the Warriors, they're just so talented up front, because I even thought about it after the game on the way home the other night. Like some of those other teams you would think with Vecchio and Lisbon and all those guys, they only made it to one championship, or they, what I mean? There some of them didn't have a chance, and it's like, what is it? And I really believe the defense, always tough with Bob Westerland's defense, is always one of the tops. And, the offensive and defensive line are so important for this team.
Yeah, and you don't know about the intangibles either that's going on. And I'm not saying that, those other teams didn't have intangibles. They certainly did. But, this team certainly has a chip on its shoulder after losing to Pine Richland and returning a lot of guys, from last season. And, we look back at that 2015 team in which Penn-Trafford defeated Pine Richland in the semifinal and then lost to Central Catholic, the all-star Central Catholic Vikings that year. I always call them that because, number one, PT only lost, 24-17. So it was a close game. They had to come back a little bit to do it. But, if they don't play Central Catholic that year, I think they easily are WPIAL champions. So you got to factor that in there too. But I can't, agree more with Sean about just the way that, the defense is playing and the guys up front. It all starts with them on every team, but certainly on this Penn-Trafford team. And then when you add a Division I running back like Cade Yakimelli, I'm not saying he's going to play running back at the next level, but Sean, I want to get this. You were mentioning on the broadcast, there were some Division I type runs for Cade Yakimelli in that game. And I'm not talking about him hitting like the circle button and doing 25 spin moves, but just the way that he was able to find the gap, stay patient, and then as soon as he found it, boom, you saw that burst, especially in the second half. And, I thought there was some little things, dipping the shoulder that you guys were talking about on the broadcast.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's so good at taking on that contact, but also covering the football. The fumble that he had at the beginning of the game, I don't know if it was nerves or was it the beginning. It looked like he kind of hit the ground. It might not have been, if there was any type of review, who knows. But, he's very good at holding on to that ball. And it just his patience. That run that he made in the second half to break it open and get it up to 10-0. I mean, he just slow played it. And as soon as he saw that hit, that guy took off and there was nobody who was going to catch him. And those were good linebackers on the other side, good defensive line. He had Paul Mary coming up from his safety spot all night long and making plays. And it just really, it showed. And the other night, I went through all the old stats. That was the first time that he ever got 200 yards rushing in his career. And I mean, it was one of the most important games, and just the way he did it showed why. It was like a coming out. I guess you could say a coming out party, because it showed why he is a D1 player.
And I have a feeling that when we get to plays of the week and just a little bit later, we might see Cade Yakimelli once or twice with that great performance. Well, we spent a lot of time talking about Penn-Trafford. They move on to the championship in 5A, now sitting at 10-2. Pine Richland season ends with a record of 7-5. You can go back and watch that. We had a comprehensive broadcast, a lengthy pregame. We had a lot on the postgame. Great stuff, as always, with our video production broadcast and the commentary crew as well. But that's just one team in Westmoreland County that advanced to the championship. Belle Vernon area in 4A is moving on as well, as the Leopards score what I think is a slight, maybe surprising outcome, 21-7 against Thomas Jefferson. Not that they beat the Jaguars, because they did that earlier this year, but they really controlled the game, got up 2 scores early. Ultimately, we're up 21-0. Thomas Jefferson's only points came in the final minute of the game. So the Leopards remain perfect, 10-0. TJ bows out at 8-3. And guys, I know that we always thought when they defeated Thomas Jefferson in the regular season, they were probably going to have to go through the Jaguars again. We thought it maybe could be in a championship. Well, they did go through them again. It happened to be in the semifinals. But I think if you could pick one opponent to defeat to get to a championship, that would be the team they would pick, because it's always a little bit sweeter when you can knock off your rival.
That's a good point, because Matt Humbert said after the game that, this was such a huge win, but it's bittersweet because we still have another game to go here if we want to be WPIAL champions. So it's always big to beat your rival. He mentioned after the game that, the teams, may have that good hatred on the field, but they do respect one another. And anytime that either of them can beat one another, that's certainly a big thing, especially for Belle Vernon at this point, going to the WPIAL champion, kind of slaying the dragon a little bit against TJ. But I thought the key to this game, guys, was the Belle Vernon rushing defense against Thomas Jefferson's rushing offense, and the way that they absolutely shut them down. They had 69 yards rushing in the game. That is it. And Thomas Jefferson the week before ran for over 300. And that's what they like to do. If you can shut them down in the running game, you're going to be able to control them. It's very difficult to do, but that's exactly what the Leopards did last week, Sean.
Yeah, their run game is one of the tops every year. I mean, I've been on a couple staffs at Franklin Regional where we went against TJ twice and came on the bottom end, short end both times. They're very difficult to defend. They saw them twice in 1 year. That just makes it, very tough. But they play every aspect of the game. They play good, very good defense. They have a very good rushing game, dynamic player in Devin Whitlock, and their special teams are solid. And that's what put them in this position.
Should note that Thomas Jefferson's primary running back, Elias Lippincott, missed the game.
Yeah,
that being said, I don't know that made a major difference. Now, I know if you ask the Thomas Jefferson perspective, they'll say it did, but it seems like it's kind of a plug and play with the running back, and their quarterback, Joe Lexie, really was a tremendous running threat. So I thought, according to Coach Humbert, he was a bigger threat than whoever they had at the traditional running back position. Getting up those two scores early, that really allowed their defense to kind of get into a groove. And that was, I think, maybe the best defensive performance we've seen from the Leopards all season, to your point, Flick. Just absolutely incredible. Offensively, it was a season low in points, and that was something that I mentioned to Matt Humbert. We'll hear from him a little bit later, but they did enough. And Devin Whitlock didn't have to maybe have his best performance. We knew he wasn't probably not going to have his best performance going against a great defense, but he's such a leader. It seems like you can trust him. He doesn't always have to have a spectacular run, but he makes the right play in and play out.
Yeah, and he's just so dangerous. Again, anytime he drops back to pass, he can extend the play, keep the play going, find open guys that are, while he's scrambling around. That's such a big weapon for them. And, 21 carries, 146 yards, pretty darn good. But, I would say he had to grind it out maybe a little bit more than he has in the past, but still a very effective offense. And Quentin Martin defensively came up with a big interception early in the game, which certainly was huge, intercepting a Lexie pass. And I also want to give a shout, I always do, to my man Cole Waitman. I wasn't there, obviously, watching the game. I watched back to some of it. He was making tackles, led the defense in tackles, and was limping around while doing it with an injured knee. He said after the game that, pain is temporary, and I feel like $1 million is what he said. So, I mean, the kid is tough as nails. And Sean, you as a coach know that you love to have those types of kids because, again, all the press goes to Quentin Martin and Devin Whitlock, and certainly deservedly so. But you have these other guys, like Jack Breyer and like, Cole Waitman, Logan Hoffman, a bunch of guys I could name that are really doing the job to allow these other guys to make plays.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Those guys, I mean, they're the rocks of the team. I mean, they're what hold it together, because the stars, they're going to be the stars, but you got to have those other guys that trickle in and contribute. And that's what makes up a team and a great team. I mean, you look at, someone like Devin Whitlock, not a very big guy, but the kid is just so dynamic, can just move on a dime and just makes a lot of nice plays. But to be able to spread the ball around and have other guys help him, that's what makes him even better and makes the team special.
And keep in mind that in 2019, Belle Vernon area reached the championship. They got blown out by Thomas Jefferson. Whitlock was just a sophomore in his first year with the team then. Quentin Martin was not even in high school. So this was sort of been building the last couple years for Belle Vernon area. It certainly feels like their year. They still have some more work to do. We'll get to their opponent, Aliquippa, because that is a team that has tested a program with tradition unlike any other. But again, just a terrific performance by the Leopards. They maintain their perfect record, and now they, much like Penn-Trafford, will be championship bound. The good news for us is they play back-to-back on Saturday, so we'll be down there one right after the other. We don't have to worry about killing any time at the casino or anything in between games, so we'll be good.
maybe before, Sean, pregame, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. I know it's going to be a crazy atmosphere, and I would bet that after Belle Vernon plays, especially if the Leopards win, they will be cheering for Penn-Trafford, and I would think that the Warriors and their faithful will be cheering for Belle Vernon before their game gets underway.
I mean, as they should be. There's a lot of respect there too, with, of course, the teams playing in a non-conference game earlier this year. And I also got to give a shout out to Franklin Regional earlier this week, sent out a graphic that was, congratulating Penn-Trafford, wishing them good luck. And I think it said, bring a title back to Westmoreland County. And, these talking at least about the county teams, they play a lot against one another during the regular season, but also many of them are members of the Westmoreland County Coaches Association. They go 7-on-7 against each other a lot. They scrimmage, and of course they talk. We have them all at our kickoff show, and they all talk with one another. So, there's definitely some bonds there. So I know there's some rivalries, some good rivalries, but I think that, all the teams would like them to kind of see them do well for Westmoreland County.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
That'll do it for the high school scores from Westmoreland County, but there was also one college game. We did not anticipate this initially, but St. Vincent played in its bowl game for the first time in a long, long time. However, they came up short as Fairleigh Dickinson Florham defeated St. Vincent 38-19. So the Bearcats finish at 5-6, but the opportunity to play in a bowl game is pretty cool. Now, I will say it's maybe not the same as when you watch the NCAA Division I and you get like however long it is, 6 weeks off to practice.
The Meineke Car Care Bowl and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. They played just on Saturday after the final game, so it was right back to regular action. However, there was something significant. I don't know if you saw this, guys. Brady Walker, the quarterback for St. Vincent, he's had a terrific season. He was great in high school at Gateway, went on to win a championship there. He surpassed his head coach, Aaron Smetanka, for the most passing yards in a single season. He did that in the bowl game. So that had to be pretty ironic. I would think Smetanka congratulated him, but by the same token, it came in a loss. But that's a pretty cool moment to have the head coach's record broken by his star quarterback.
You mean he couldn't have seen, how close he was and taken him out of the game before?
Yeah, I guess he could have pulled him.
Well, Sean and I had a chance. The one year we actually did have a chance to broadcast the WPIAL championship game there. We had a chance to see Brady Walker, and he wasn't a kid that had a ton of, I guess, tools, I would say, to be like a, Division II, Division I quarterback. But man, he was so tough and just made so many plays for them. Yeah.
Especially in that game. I mean, they made so many key plays and, third downs. I remember a few big third downs. They had to pull it out. And I mean, he was a very special player, and it's nice to see him, playing for a local team and doing well and setting the numbers he is.
And you're talking about Gateway's victory over Penn-Trafford, I'm assuming, in 2017. Yeah, that was the last time the Warriors played for a WPIAL championship. They have never won WPIAL gold. Certainly, they will be hoping to change that. Belle Vernon Area 1 title. It came back in 1995.
And, Sean, I wanted to give a quick shout-out, too, to Coach Don Hall of the Gateway Gators. He
Coach and AD.
I'm sorry?
Coach and athletic director.
Yes,
he wears many hats.
Let me put the AD in there, too, because that's very important, is what I was going to get to. I talked with him during the week to make sure we were set up for Friday. And, I'm sure in the back of his mind, he was thinking, this is the last thing I want to do this Friday is host a playoff game, not be in our playoff game ourselves, and then, of course, have it be Penn-Trafford of all teams. Now, of course, he didn't say that to me, but I'm sure, at least he was thinking the first part of that. He wants to be playing. He doesn't want to be hosting a semifinal game, but he couldn't have been nicer, helping us make sure we get set up and everything there. And so I just, kind of want to give him a shout out. Gateway obviously didn't finish the season the way they wanted to, but they're going to be there next year. So.
Yeah, they always reload, and he was letting guys in the other night. He was, doing his part. just a good guy, and, he'll be back again for sure.
Yeah, I have always enjoyed my experiences working with Don Holm. So finally, before we move on to the plays of the week, I want to get to the top performers. Now, we typically do this with the top passer, rusher, and receiver from the entire district, and then a number of Westmoreland County standouts. But because there's only 2 Westmoreland County teams, there's only a few names that appear, but they'll be pretty notable ones. Let's take a look at the top passer from around the WPIAL last week in the playoffs. It was Josh Jenkins of Stowe Rocks. He throws for 282 yards, 17 of 27 passing for the Vikings, although it came in a loss to Sarah Catholic. We'll hear a little bit about that as we run down all the brackets later. But Jenkins, the top passer, 282 yards. The top rusher, now I need to figure out how to say this first name because it's one that we'll probably be hearing a lot on Saturday. Yeah, Aliquip, a freshman. Is it Taquai Hayes? 218 yards. He is absolutely incredible. This freshman has a chance to maybe be up there. Mike White wrote an article about him this week, and Mike does a great job with all his factoids and tidbits, comparing him to some of the all-time leading rushers in WPIAL history. What they did as freshmen, guys like Russell Shell, Lamont Wade, Zane Dudek. Well, he said that Hayes is sort of right in line with all of those players in terms of where they're at in terms of their freshman year rushing total. And he's certainly going to add to that total on Saturday against Belle Vernon. He goes for 218 yards. Keep in mind, a freshman leading the way. Yeah, very, very impressive for the Quips in their overtime victory. And then a couple of Westmoreland County performers cracked the rushing list. Cade Yacomelli, 207 yards leading Penn-Trafford. And Devin Whitlock, 146 yards on the ground. One receiver atop the list for the WPIAL, that's Drayvon Miller-Ross of Stowe Rocks. 5 receptions, 139 yards to lead the way. That'll do it for the opening segment of this very special championship preview edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We will take a break. When we come back, it is the always popular plays of the week. And a little bit later, we will hear from John Ruane of Penn-Trafford and Matt Humbert of Belle Vernon area. That's all upcoming as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
We know speaking and alcohol can be challenging, but is necessary. Remember to have a conversation, not a confrontation. Establish good communications, break through barriers, and be firm but loving. Here are some helpful tips. Choose a good place and time to chat. Talk with openness. Actively listen. Offer empathy and support. For more information, visit us online at wedacinc.org. Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission. Prevention is key.
You're always on the winning team with Bowser Chevrolet of Monroeville and Bowser Chevrolet Chippewa. Visit BowserChevrolet.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get the power of Bowser in your hands. With the new Chevy vehicles arriving weekly, reserve yours now at Bowser Chevrolet. See the full lineup of Chevy cars, trucks, and SUVs at BowserChevrolet.com. Bowser Chevrolet, where the power of Bowser is yours.
Westmoreland County's broadcast home for high school sports, the Westmoreland Sports Network.
And we roll along here on the championship preview edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Sean Meyers, Sean Benjamin joining us this week as a special guest, and Dan Flickinger. Can't forget about old Flick here on this special edition. And it is always special whenever we get to the Plays of the Week segment. I know that everyone was sad that we did not have it the last couple of weeks, but the good news is we have a Penn-Trafford edition of Plays of the Week. And we begin with their defensive effort. It was massive on Friday, but no play was bigger than the one that the Warriors made early in the second quarter. It was a scoreless game, and the Rams had 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, and quarterback Ruane Meyers tried a sneak. But the swarm of defenders denied him at the goal line, with Josh Huffman and Declan Ochendowski leading the way as called by John Flickinger and Sean Benjamin.
Too, just to get those extra couple. Here he goes again. He's hit, he's dropped, and he's not going to get there. Warrior defense for the second time tonight comes up with the stop.
The Warrior defensive line coming up big for the second time tonight, and they shut Pine Richland down on their second try inside the 10-yard line.
This is what, yep, and this is what they did against Peters Township and scored on, not PT though. Ochendowski and company. Huffman was in there.
Yep.
And the Warriors, they might have to, they have to field the drive here, but
great defensive stand by the Warriors. They shut the door on Pine Richland. That was the second time that they got into that position. So, just great defensive play, and that set the tone for the rest of the night for the Warriors.
And especially when you have a guy like Paul Mary, I know at the 1-yard line, Sean, he doesn't have a lot of room to go laterally there. I mean, but he was elusive all night, and to get into the backfield the way Declan did and the rest of the guys did, that was so huge on that play. And then if you remember, I think Penn-Trafford escaped their own end zone pretty quick. Yeah. I think a couple of plays later, maybe the first play, Carter Green, if I remember right, kind of escaped.
Carter Green had a nice run to midfield, maybe their side of the field. But yeah, and it's crazy. They ran the same play the week before, just to hurry up, quick sneaks, so the Warriors saw it. So I think that's what gave them the heads up down at the 1 that's coming again.
Yeah, and you see the final score 24-6 and say, oh, well, would have really mattered. But I think in this case it would have. For Pine Richland to have that touchdown in the first half really would have changed the complexion of the game. We continue Plays of the Week, special Penn-Trafford edition, as the first touchdown of the game. It came about 4 minutes into the third quarter, and it was the first of a hat trick for Warriors senior running back Cade Yacomelli. His spectacular run put Penn-Trafford ahead by 2 scores, and the Warriors, they never looked back, with John and Sean once again on the call.
Direct snap again to Cade, and he's going to dance his way into a hole, and there goes Cade Yacomelli to the 10, the 5, the goal line, and the Penn-Trafford touchdown.
What patience by Yacomelli. That's a D1 guy right there, and you can see why he's going to Wisconsin. He was so patient, working his way down, found that crack, and once he got it, he was out.
33 yards for the senior. And that big conversion by Green to Kalkstein set that up. And Yacomelli scores his 17th touchdown of the season, and there he is.
Sean Benjamin, this is what we talked about before this play, in which it was such a huge run. Penn-Trafford was up 3-0. You could kind of feel maybe PT getting some of the momentum, but this really put the momentum on their side. And what a great run by Cade, again, showing that patience.
Yeah, the patience. The way he ran the other night, I mean, it was textbook, and it definitely set the tone for the rest of the half, and it started. He's busting down barriers left and right as far as the record book goes. So he was definitely on track there.
Yeah, and that put Penn-Trafford up by 2 scores, but I had to go back to Cade Yacomelli for our final play of the week, as he put an exclamation point on the victory. His 3rd rushing score with less than 3 minutes left. It sealed the outcome, punching the Warriors' ticket to Heinz Field. It also put Yacomelli over 200 yards on the ground for the night, as detailed once again by John and Sean.
It's just a straight handoff now, and Cade gets outside to the 10, to the 5, and he steps in for the touchdown.
What a run by Yacomelli. Great point, Hannah. He is one heck of a leader in the bounce back and getting the end zone like he has in the fourth quarter and the second half for that point.
And they don't want to tackle him now. I mean, it's just one of those things where the offensive line has just been tremendous. They've worn him down, and I know Cade gives so much credit to the offensive line, but listen, you got to give Cade's got to give himself some too, because he is just tough to tackle. Watch this move right here. Gets outside. Gocha says, he just can't stay with him.
He's so good at that little dip that he gives, and he makes those defenders dip down inside, and once he makes his move, he's gone.
Yeah, so on that run he had right there, that just finished the game off. You could see the excitement was starting to get there. You could see all night long the way that the offensive line started to take over. And, once they got that stop right before that on the Pine Richland possession, the Warriors took the ball and just marched it right down the field. And you could see that excitement for Heinz starting to come.
And you said it was a coming out party for Iacomelli. First time over 200 yards. That rush got him over 200 yards. It sealed the outcome of the game. And what a moment for him. And anyone who did not maybe think that he was among the very best in the WPIAL coming into this season, he has proven a lot of people wrong in that regard. He has been outstanding from the very first game all the way up now to the championship. That'll do it for the very special Penn-Trafford edition of Plays of the Week. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will run down all of the brackets, 6A through 1A, updated throughout the playoffs. We'll also hear from John Ruane, the head coach of the Penn-Trafford Warriors, and Matt Humbert of Belle Vernon, right here on this special championship preview edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
The all-new 2022 Mitsubishi Outlander at Sindel Mitsubishi. Drive one today for $239 a month, plus an industry-leading 10-year warranty. The all-new Outlander at Sindel Mitsubishi. Get thunderstruck.
D'Annunzio's Italian Restaurants is open 7 days a week at all 3 of our locations, Jeanette, Monroeville, and Latrobe. We invite you to join us for our specials. Monday, the special is spaghetti. Tuesday, it's raviolis. Wednesday, it's lasagna. And Thursday, it's chicken parmesan or chicken romano. Be sure to try our drink specials and our fabulous desserts. And remember, we also have takeout available at all 3 locations.
This is how far we'll go to treat heart, lung, and vascular disease. 15 millimeters. At Excella Health, we believe less can be more. That's why we use minimally invasive surgery in the treatment of coronary artery disease, heart valve repair and replacement, lung cancer, and conditions of the peripheral arteries. For our patients, that means less blood loss, less post-operative pain, and a faster recovery. It means that a disease process that took decades to develop can, in a few hours, be reversed. And for us, it means providing the most advanced and sophisticated care for patients in our region. The Heart, Lung, and Vascular Institute at Excella Health. Expert care here.
Westmoreland County's broadcast home for high school sports, the Westmoreland Sports Network.
And welcome back to a special championship preview edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Meyers, Dan Flickinger, Sean Benjamin, bringing you all of the best in Westmoreland County high school football. We already ran down the plays of the week. Now let's look at the updated brackets throughout the WPIAL playoffs. And we've already crowned one champion. It happened on Saturday night right here in Westmoreland County at Norwin High School as number 1 seed Mount Lebanon. They left no doubt a 47-7 victory against number 2 Pittsburgh Central Catholic. Everyone knew that this could be Mount Lebanon's year. The fact that they did it by 40 points, I heard it was the biggest margin and the largest classification in a long, long time. Really just unbelievable what Coach Palco has done there. And I thought Central Catholic was really going to give them a game, but Daniels returned to play quarterback. He was terrific. It just seems like this has been building all season for the Blue Devils.
Yeah, when's the last time that Central Catholic lost a game 47-7 in a mercy rule? I mean, that is incredible. And you said it, Sean, Mount Lebanon's first title since 2000. Bob Palco has not been there that long, obviously. Obviously what he has done when he has gotten there and building this Mount Lebanon team, much like he did at West Allegheny, into this force, really is impressive, Sean.
He really has done a fantastic job. I mean, phenomenal coach going in. You knew it was only a matter of time. I'm a little surprised that they've already won the championship, but, you knew that he was going to improve them from day one. But, I mean, it just shows how great of a coach he is to really turn them around and get that title.
Yeah, certainly a great coach. I think also a great eye for talent, because I think he knew that Mount Lebanon had some really good underclassmen when he took the job, wanted to see it through. They're now mostly seniors, and they have certainly developed in a big, big way. And now the goal for them, and they've already said this, they want to win a state title. Keep in mind, 6A is kind of unique because it's only 8 teams. It's a small playoff bracket, so it doesn't quite have the same feel as the other classifications, especially without it being at Heinz Field this year. So they're looking for a championship now in Hershey, potentially in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, I believe every other classification, Sean, when you win, or if you do win the WPIAL championship, let's put it this way, the WPIAL champion will enter the state playoffs in the semifinals in every class except for 6A. Mount Lebanon's going to play a quarterfinal game on Friday against McDowell. For some reason, it's at Mount Lebanon. I don't know how that happened, but I think that's kind of how they shake everything out. So it is kind of strange, but that's how they have to do it. So technically, the WPIAL championship round in districts is the quarterfinal round in the PIAA for every classification except 6A.
And it's always usually, especially at 6A, it's always taken on a team from Erie, and this year it's McDowell, sometimes Prep, it's just either, Erie Prep's always in that spot now, Erie McDowell. So, it's really who wins that Erie Bowl is the one that, Western PA is going to face to move on. But yeah, after this, I mean, I haven't looked at the state bracket, but I'm sure there's a lot of good teams in there still.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations to our first WPIAL football champions in 2021, the Mount Lebanon Blue Devils. We now look at the 5A, and as we mentioned before, number 2 Penn-Trafford, really just an incredible victory against the number 3 seeded Pine Richland Rams, 24-6. We know they'll be playing the number 1 seed, the Moon Tigers, 14-9. They snuck past number 5 Penn Hills. And you look at Moon in this postseason, they win by 8 points against number 9 Woodland Hills, and now a 5-point victory against number 5 Penn Hills. So you're saying, well, they're not dominating teams. Maybe they're not deserving of being the number 1 seed. They're undefeated, but have they really dominated the opposition? No, they haven't, but they've done everything they needed to win the game. And they're not about style points necessarily with Moon. That is a team, and John Ruane said this, we're going to hear from him momentarily. They are great in special teams, some of those hidden aspects. They don't have 1 or 2 superstar players, but they have about a dozen really, really good players. Each and every one of them can make you pay if you don't cover them.
It kind of reminds you of Penn-Trafford, doesn't it? Yeah, Cade Yacomelli is a superstar, don't get me wrong, but typically when you look at Penn-Trafford teams over the years, don't get me wrong, they have some really, really good players, but maybe not superstars all over the field, but they play solid football. They know what they're doing. They're smart. They're hard-nosed and all those things. And I feel like maybe this Moon team is kind of similar to Penn-Trafford in that way, Sean.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, their top rusher, he has 772 yards, 147 carries. I mean, that's their man. They like to get the ball to. Also Jeremiah Dean's also a nice player. Ian Foster. They have a slew of players that have gotten them to 12-0, and it's going to be a tough test for the Warriors. I know a lot of people are high on the Warriors after beating Pine Richland, but they definitely got to come back down to earth and be ready to go on Saturday night.
When you look at Moon throughout this regular season, they had, again, a lot of narrow victories. The one that I look at, they won by 3 points at Peters Township. Now, keep in mind, that's a Peters Township team that didn't put a great record together in the regular season, but did win at Penn-Trafford, but then they struggled twice against Woodland Hills. It was the first time in the regular season, a 15-0 victory, and then 21-13 the second time around. I thought that Penn-Trafford made pretty quick work of the Wolverines in that matchup, although it was not a blowout by any means. So when you look at common opponents, I don't know that that really tells you one way or the other. It certainly looks like what you would expect with a 1 versus 2 matchup. It could be a really evenly matched game, and it could potentially come down to the final couple of minutes.
And Sean Benjamin, I'm curious, your opinion on this. When teams play at Heinz Field against one another, I don't know, do you throw some of that stuff out the window? I mean, not all of it, certainly. I mean, obviously, certain teams are favored and are expected to win maybe more than others. But when you have maybe some evenly matched teams, and you're trying to look at like opponents and everything. I mean, does playing it at a stadium like that? I mean, I don't know. Do you think that changed things at all?
To a degree, I think nerves and everything, that plays into it. I mean, go back to the Warriors' last championship game against Gateway. They beat them earlier that year, and a lot of people thought that they had the advantage going in, but like we said, Brady had a huge day and turn that, and Derek Davis and turn that around. So it's just really coming out. And I know Coach Ruane and his staff want this real bad. This is their, 7th time or 8th time in this championship game. I mean, this is a big one, and I know the team wants it for them too. And I mean, I think the nerves. This is a pretty oiled machine and a pretty veteran group. So I don't think there'll be too many nerves, but if they can shake those early and get to what they do, that'll help. I think, too, a lot of it, too, is weather also. You look at the weather, what's it like outside? They're playing on grass. They're not playing on turf. That's a little bit of adjustment early in the game.
Yeah, and what Sean was referring to is Gateway, when Coach Ruane and many of his assistant coaches were coaching there. Of course, John was the offensive coordinator there. Made several WPIAL championship games and couldn't quite get over that bump. And if you ask John about it, obviously he's going to deflect and say it's about Penn-Trafford, it's about his kids, but like, come on, everybody's human. He in the back of his head, he's like, man, I want to win one of these. Yep. So hopefully this will be the year for them.
And those teams, I mean, they went in the one. They averaged like 46 points a game, 45 points a game, and they lost 10-0. I mean, it's just stuff like that. Down at Heinz Field, those nerves, playing on grass, doing some different stuff. But I think the Warriors are built to play in this type of game. They're built to play on grass in the big stadium. I think that this will be a triumphant one for the Warriors.
And you talk about the nerves and playing at Heinz Field. I think one thing that might be notable, it is the third and final game of Saturday, slated for a 6 o'clock kickoff. It probably won't start at 6, to be honest. That's just usually how it works. When it's the last game of the night, something runs long, whether it be the 3A or the 4A game, to push things back. It will be played under the lights in its entirety. And you think, okay, maybe it gets moved back 20, 30 minutes. Those players have to get ready to play at 6 o'clock, and then they might have to wait. So that could create some nerves. It could create a situation that, quite frankly, they might not be used to. So I think the first 5 minutes of the game, if you even want to extend it, maybe the first half of the opening quarter, it will be absolutely crucial, because in what I anticipate to be a low-scoring game, if either one of those teams can make a big play early, whether it be offensively, defensively, or special teams where it's a real strength for both teams, that could certainly prove to be the difference.
Well, and John Ruane said earlier this week that, like, hey, one of the things that plagued us in the championship losses that we had at Penn-Trafford, not talking about Gateway, but the past Penn-Trafford teams were like getting off to slow starts. And he said, we can't do that. Sean, do you think he'll petition the WPIAL to start at 7:30 since that's his preferred start time?
Yeah, get a little break in between.
He's hoping Belle, Vernon, and TJ going to overtime, maybe.
Right. Yeah, get to start when he wants. But yeah, I mean, I do. I think they're the preparation all week is going to set it up, and they'll have everything mapped out. And I think that they'll be ready whenever it's time, whatever time they're called, to be ready to go.
I don't know why Belle, Vernon, and McKeesport. Or no, oh my goodness, Belle, Vernon, and Aliquippa. Let's get that other team in the semifinals that was in there. Yeah, that's the championship, not Belle, Vernon, and TJ. So. Right. Just wanted to straighten that out.
Gotcha.
And it looks like a clear night. I mean, it says 38 and clear as of right now. snow showers at night, but that could be in the middle of the night, not at 6 o'clock.
One thing I know for sure, talking to head coach John Ruane, he is dialed in, very focused. Mm-hmm. He is a tunnel vision right now for this championship game upcoming on Saturday, but he was kind enough to take some time to talk to me. So here now is my interview with head coach John Ruane of the Penn-Trafford Warriors. Coach, I know it's always exciting to get back to a championship game. Let's look at the victory against Pine Richland. It seemed like your defense was absolutely outstanding. What stood out about that effort on that side of the football?
Well, I mean, it was just the backs against the wall mentality. We made a couple mishaps that give Pine a short field, and we were able to make 2 big stops on 4th down inside the 10 and then once inside the 2. And ultimately, I think that really swung the game in our favor. We didn't have a great start on offense, but as soon as we made that goal line stand at the 2-yard line, we broke out of there. We got a big run to start the drive, and we ended up with a field goal. But the defense was just tremendous all night long. I mean, it was a very physical game. Pine Richland's a very physical team. I thought we matched that. We bent a little, but we certainly didn't break, and ultimately defense won that football game.
I know your offense was not great in the first half, but the fact that you got that field goal you alluded to and took a lead into halftime, how important was that to be in front?
I think it was huge. I mean, it's a playoff game, so any points are a big deal. But in particular, when things weren't going our way, that was a big confidence boost, I thought. And, you love playing with a lead. But it was a big drive for us. I thought we did okay. Otherwise, we just... a couple turnovers and a couple really bad penalties, and nobody's good when they have 2nd down and 20. So that's something we've been harping on staying away from, but it happens sometimes. So overall, we've got to improve.
And certainly you cleaned up some of those issues offensively in the second half as you scored 21 of your 24 points. And I know eliminating turnovers, reducing penalties, that's going to be key in every game. But it also seems like Cade Yakimelli sort of took it upon himself to make sure your team was getting into the end zone. What did you see from him in that second half?
We kind of just decided we wanted to balance them out a little bit, put the ball in Cade's hands and just put an extra blocker out there, and let him use his vision and his athletic ability and make cuts. Pretty much no secret what we were doing, but credit him and credit the offensive line and tight ends and H-backs and even the guys on the perimeter. I thought blocked their butts off and did a great job. But Cade certainly had an inner voice telling him he's got to, take over, and he did.
And certainly that was a little bit of redemption for him after the fumble early in the game. Talk about special teams, because so much attention is paid to offense and defense once you get this deep into the season, but that third aspect certainly key, especially for your team.
Yeah, again, Nathan Schlesinger was money on a field goal, and I thought our kickoff coverage was great. We kept them on a long field all night, but ultimately the best player of the night on special teams was Josh Huffman. He had 3 outstanding punts, and in particular one where we were backed up at our own 1-yard line, and he crushed 140 yards and it went out of bounds. And that's tough to cover those ones because you got to max protect, and he placed it perfectly and crushed it. So he did an awesome job. He's an underrated punter. He's a 3-year starter punter. He's been fantastic for us as well. The hidden secret, it's not really a secret if you watch film with Moon, is they are fantastic on special teams. So this is a massive point of emphasis going into the championship.
I know from a coach's perspective you maybe don't have this approach, but from the players who were on the wrong end of a pretty lopsided score against Pine Richland last year, how sweet was it to get the victory, to get some redemption, and to defeat the defending champions in the process?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, we didn't really look at it that way. We decided a long time ago to kind of put last year in the past and move on to this year. I mean, ultimately that sounds good after the fact, but that was not our mentality going into the game. We've moved past last year, and we talked about how this is our team now, and we're just excited to beat those guys because they were in the semis and the next step.
You've been in this situation before. You've coached teams that have played for a WPIAL championship. How do you balance the excitement, the celebration after that massive victory on Friday and getting to the championship, and then making sure the focus is proper throughout this entire week of practice?
Well, I think that we had the excitement Friday, and the kids should be excited. I mean, they're getting to play at Heinz Field, but from experience, as coaches, we've talked about how as great as it is and all that stuff, it's it hurts a lot worse when you don't win this one, you know. So we've really done a good job of kids and coaches combined, I believe, to get focused on Moon and putting aside all the hoopla with the game and, you know, worried about the task at hand like any other Friday night.
Talking to John Ruane, the head coach of the Penn-Trafford Warriors, before his team's matchup in the 5A championship against the Moon Tigers. This is certainly a unique week. It's Thanksgiving week. I know the school schedule has changed a little bit. You also have one extra day because the championship game is being competed not only on Saturday, but Saturday night. So take me through how you've sort of mapped out this week to optimize your time.
Well, funny enough, we played a Saturday game this year against Shaler, and we kind of used that as our model for the week as far as practice schedule. We just got some extra work in on Monday on some new installations, some special teams, you know, a lot of walkthrough, a lot of teach, which was great. We got an extra time to do that, kind of, you know, point out to the kids what we think would, you know, how Moon lines up both sides of the ball and the importance of specials. And then, you know, we basically bump everything back a day. Monday becomes Tuesday, Tuesday becomes Wednesday, etc. You know, it's a great thing to be practicing on Thanksgiving. I don't know. It's like
Your next golf adventure awaits at Manor Valley Golf Course in Export. Manor Valley offers 18 scenic holes over gentle sloping fairways and the purest putting surfaces around. Manor Valley Golf Course in Export is the perfect place to host your next golf outing, banquet party, or shower. Manor Valley also offers league play and great membership rates. Tee times available. Call 724-744-4242. Visit ManorValleyGC.com.
When you're in pain or suffering from an injury, all you want is to get back on your feet, back to living your life. At East Suburban Sports Medicine Center, that's what we've done for 35 years. Our staff is skilled, experienced, and compassionate. Our facilities are modern and welcoming, and our focus is on you. So if you want to feel better, play better, and live better, call us today or visit one of our 6 offices.
East Suburban Sports Medicine. Take it from me, Bill Hillgrove. It's the best care, hands down.
We continue here on a special championship preview edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron, 7 p.m. Wednesday night right here on WSN. Sean, Dan, and Sean bringing you all the high school football talk around Westmoreland County. We thank head coach John Ruane for taking the time from what is a very, very busy week for him prior to their 5A championship. And we should note, again, we said it before, we will be down at Heinz Field. WSN will be there with all sorts of different content. We're going to interview coaches and players following the matchup. We'll have an article recapping it as well. So a lot of stuff that you want to follow on social media, and then we'll have it up in all likelihood on our website relatively quickly afterwards as well. But that won't be the only game that we'll be covering. We will be down there for the 4A championship at 3 p.m. on Saturday. It will be number 1, Belle Vernon area, number 2, Aliquippa, as the Leopards scored a 21-7 victory against number 5, Thomas Jefferson. And Aliquippa escaped with a 27-21 double overtime victory against number 3, McKeesport. Number 1 seed versus number 2, 2 teams that met last year in the semifinals. The Quips won that one against Belle Vernon area. Should be a great matchup for the championship. Aliquippa, unbelievably, playing for the 14th consecutive year in a championship. And they're doing that playing up 3 classifications. They are a 1A school by enrollment. They were anticipating playing 3A, got forced to play 4A because of transfers and competitive balance rules, and they have not missed a beat. They competed for a championship last year. They're right back at Heinz Field. The Leopards back for the second time in 3 years. All the makings for a classic. And I think the best thing for Belle Vernon area is there could have been a letdown after they defeated TJ, their big rival, if not for the fact that they lost to Aliquippa last year. So they certainly know how good this Quips team is. They want maybe a little bit of vengeance as well.
Yeah, I think this Belle Vernon team is just really, really focused right now, riding high after a TJ win. But that's a good point, Sean. You know, when you have an emotional win like that, you could come into the next game, even if it is the WPIAL championship, maybe a little bit sluggish. But again, Aliquippa ended Belle Vernon's season last year. Mm-hmm. And again, I mean, for a guy like Devin Whitlock, Cole Waitman, and the other seniors on this team, this might be their last best shot certainly the seniors will be. It's their last shot for a WPIAL championship, but even the underclassmen. I mean, it's really hard to get here. In the future, obviously, Belle Vernon is still going to have some really good players, but there's no guarantee you're going to get back to a WPIAL title game because crazy things can happen. So I think Belle Vernon is going to be very focused coming into this game. But how about Aliquippa? Now there's talk that if they get to the state championship, win a state championship, they may be asked to play up in 5A, which is just crazy. I mean, just throw them up in 6A and see how they do against North Allegheny and stuff. I have a feeling they'd be a good game. I mean, they really are just a cut above. I mean, their program is just unbelievable with the way that they just keep moving up classifications, not only competing, but now competing for championships. And I mean, what more can you say about them? And as we talked about before, running back's a freshman. I think their quarterback is a sophomore. So if anyone's thinking, when's this well going to dry up, it's not anytime soon for the Quips.
No, and there's always so many athletes on that team. Their offensive and defensive line are huge. They're like a college style line each year. So I mean, that's what helps that skill break free, and that's what helps them every year. They have such a big offensive and defensive line that controls the ball up front. So it's going to be this is going to be a big test for BV. Playing away from the beach, playing on grass, same thing we talked about with the Warriors, playing on grass. How well are they going to play up front? And how well is Devin Whitlock and Quinn Martin going to do against that big defensive line and the amount of speed that's on the other side of the ball? They've showed it against TJ. They showed it against McKeesport, beating TJ twice and beating McKeesport. So now the next hurdle is Aliquippa to get that district title.
And Aliquippa just doesn't know how to lose, guys. I mean, look last week, in the first overtime, the Quips turn the ball over on downs at the 3-yard line. McKeesport runs 3 plays. They have a 24-yard field goal to go to Heinz Field, and they miss it. And then the Tigers actually fumbled on their drive in the second overtime, and Aliquippa hit a play-action pass for the touchdown and the game winner. But, I mean, they were a field goal away, McKeesport was, from going to the WPIAL championship. Instead, Aliquippa somehow finds a way to win the game. Just incredible.
Yeah, just unbelievable. And for a lot of fans, I know they wanted to see the Aliquippa BV matchup. So a lot of people, were happy, not the McKeesport fans, of course, but like we said, we saw them against TJ. Now we see them against Aliquippa. We've already seen them against McKeesport. So, how are they going to play? But yeah, it's just amazing what Aliquippa does each year and how they respond to, they don't like playing up. They want to play up one level, maybe 2, but not 3 and 4. That's not their thing.
And we have to give a lot of credit to their head coach, Mike Warfield, because when he was hired a few years ago, it was under the microscope, certainly. He replaced a very successful head coach, Mike Schmianik, but Coach Warfield has just continued this. And you could say, well, it's the program, not the coach, but each and every week he's had his team ready. And again, quite frankly, they are playing up against unfair competition based on their enrollment size, and they have done more than hold their own. So a team that has been there 14 consecutive years in the Quips, maybe the most historic program in WPIAL history, going against the Leopards team looking for its second WPIAL championship. The first came back in 1995. I had a chance to talk to the head coach of the Leopards, Matt Humbert, and now let's hear from the head man for BVA. Matt, I know that you've guided a team to Heinz Field before playing for a championship. That has to be very exciting. But something that you haven't done is defeat Thomas Jefferson in the playoffs. Rivalry goes back many years. What was the feeling like to get to the championship again, to defeat Thomas Jefferson in the process?
Kind of like a bittersweet feeling with TJ, for the simple fact that, unfortunately, there's just not much time to really think about it and enjoy it, because the more you win, the bigger the game is on the horizon. So, it was kind of a neat to beat them twice. And, I think a lot of people kind of maybe doubted us being able to do that. And it's understandable to a certain degree, because they're a great football program and they're hard to beat in November. But, bittersweet in the sense that wasn't really the objective. The objective, we didn't try to make the TJ game bigger than it was. It was never about beating them twice. It was about beating whoever in the semifinals to get to Heinz Field. So just one of those things where I hate to say it, we just didn't really
sit back and kind of waste too much time thinking about that win, just because you really don't have the luxury to do that, because you got to get ready for this game this week. But we're very grateful, and we're very excited to be playing in the WPIAL Championship.
You've gone against Thomas Jefferson many times, regular season and certainly in the playoffs. What was different this year as opposed to past years that allowed you to defeat them twice?
That's tough. I think, I mean, we got a well-balanced group of kids. We got a lot of different pieces in different places. On the line, we're not the biggest and the most measurable-based team, but we got a lot of kids that are tough. I think we got a solid amount of skilled kids in terms of our defensive secondary, our linebackers, our receivers. But then with that being said, I mean, when you got a kid like Quentin Martin and you got a kid like Devin Whitlock, I mean, that really helps you out a lot. But the nice thing is it's not really the Devin Quentin show, is because there's a lot of complementary pieces around them. And I think they complement Devin's skill set and Q's skill set well. So it was just it was gratifying to have an overall team win on Friday, and really nice for our defense to truly rise to the occasion. Our defensive secondary, Quentin had probably 4 pass breakups and an interception, and then our defensive line and linebacking core, who really swarmed to the ball and did a great job.
Well, you're talking about the defense. That was going to be my next question as well, because you gave up 20 points against Newcastle. You gave up a significant number of yardage. You did create the turnovers against the Red Hurricanes, but against Thomas Jefferson, it really seemed like it was an even more dominant performance from the defense. What really stood out?
I just think the aggressive play with our defense. We wanted to be aggressive, and the kids really kind of sold out on that. I thought the D-line played really well, especially against that huge offensive line. And I think our coaches did a great job with, taking some chances and doing a couple different things that would put our best kids on their best kids and, being aggressive with the game plan. So I think it was just an overall great program win.
I'm sure you're aware of this. The 21 points that you scored was actually a season low in the semifinals, but you got 2 early touchdowns and then were able to kind of use that to your advantage. How big was that to get off to the good start?
I mean, really it was, and the key, was TJ likes to take shots deep early on, and we just wanted to make sure that we withstood those first few drives, and we were able to accomplish that. We were able to get the lead on at halftime, but that was never a comfort. You knew that they're capable of scoring at any moment. So the goal was to get them to punt, and they did. And, it was nice to have the ball after half to be able to try to get that. Devin was able to score in 2 plays, and the line did a great job walking it up for him. The receivers did a great job walking it up. So we were just proud of the way that the offense played. And TJ, ironically, did some different things defensively. I mean, you sit back and you look at all the preparation you had, and then them to come out in a couple different defensive looks. I was proud of the way the kids and the coaches were able to adapt on the fly and try to make some positive alignments and some negative ones to come with it.
Talking to Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards, before his team's 4A championship game against the Aliquippa Quips. So take me through Friday night, West Mifflin High School, the reaction of your players after the final whistle there on the field, and then maybe in the hours that followed.
I mean, it's tough, man. It goes by quick, right? You get that victory, and it's kind of like a whirlwind. I think, the biggest thing is it was neat to see the kids' excitement. It was neat to see the coaches' excitement to be able to get back to that field. I feel like it's been a 2-year struggle to get us back there. It was, like I said, it was kind of bittersweet because, you can't really enjoy it too much. They were able to enjoy it in that moment, but then they had to flip the page because, unfortunately, you don't get to carry over any defensive stops and points from that game. You got to get ready for Aliquippa, and Aliquippa is such a storied franchise that the WPIAL Championship is just another game to them, really, if you think about it in the history of the program. So just excited to see those kids achieve something that not a lot of people would have thought they would have achieved. And just to be able to do it with a very business-like approach. They were all excited and pumped, but it wasn't anything over the top. I just think that they had faith. They had belief, and they should have. There's no reason what they shouldn't, but it was just neat to be able to see them have that confidence, and that confidence able to propel them. Going back to your regular season finale in which the conference title was on the line,
The last three teams you went against, McKeesport, Newcastle, Thomas Jefferson, and now your upcoming opponent, Aliquippa. I'm not sure that there's a more historic group of 4 teams you can play consecutively. I know that you really focus on the team that you're going up against any individual week, but do you ever think about the legacy of the programs you've defeated over the past handful of weeks and the one in front of you on Saturday as well?
We think about it all the time. I mean, and just from the simple fact that they're big games and they're tough competition. I mean, and then just to think of us being able to handily defeat a Penn-Trafford team who's playing in the WPIAL Championship, a class above us. And then, you think of LH, they were 5-0 and we were 5-0. That was a big game. So, McKeesport, man. I mean, their story just like Aliquippa was. So there's been no shortage of us playing tough competition this year. And, the kids and the coaches understand that. I don't know if that gives us any type of momentum or whatnot, but I know that, the kids won't be rattled in the game at the stadium with the yellow seats because, I feel like every other week we're playing in a big, meaningful game. And that's just, it's been such a neat, special thing this year, to be able to play in those games where the attendance is through the roof and, there's always something at stake, right? And the next game is bigger than the previous one. So I'm hoping that'll benefit our kids, come this weekend.
Aliquippa was in the news this week, not just for getting to another championship game, which is an incredible feat, but for the fact that they potentially could leave the WPIAL if they get asked to move up to 5A. Now, it's worth noting that they are a 1A team by enrollment, so they've done an incredible job competing here in 4A. When you look at them and the fact that they knocked off McKeesport in a one-score game last week, what really stands out about this team and about the program?
Well, I just think the number one thing I'll always sing their praises is because I know firsthand they don't give up. There's a little bit of psychological warfare sometimes when it comes to athletics, especially football. If you can come out and throw some punches, if you can come out and dominate the line of scrimmage, if you can come up and get up a few scores, not all, but some teams will quit. Boy, they show no sign of that at all, and I lived that. We got up on them early last year, and they just clawed their way back in, and then eventually beat us. The thing that I take away from McKeesport is, those just kids never quit, they never give up. And I think that's just a kind of a common mantra within that program's history. So it's a unique opponent because you're playing, TJ has all of the accolades and they're the juggernaut over the past 20 years, especially at the 4A level. But man, Aliquippa just has that tradition, that history that dates back, decade after decade after decade. So the thing that stands out in the McKeesport game was a good indicator of that is it doesn't matter what it is, they will fight till that last second on the clock.
You're familiar with Aliquippa from the playoffs last year, but one player they did not have is their freshman running back Hayes, and he has really burst onto the scene, closing in on 1,400 yards despite being a backup at the beginning of this season. What do you see from him on film?
Just kind of what we've seen out of the kid last year and what we see out of talented tailbacks is he's the real deal. He has the toolbox. He's physical, he's fast. He's good in space. He can shed tackles. So, he's just a guy that you got to account for. But, we've played against some good running backs this year. I mean, look at McKeesport, look at PT, look at some of those schools that we went up against. They've had good tailbacks. We've played against, they're a very big line, but we've played against big lines. Newcastle had a big line. TJ had a big line. PT had a big line. So it's one of those things where we're just hoping that our experience and our resume of different offenses and defenses that we've seen over this year will prepare us for this game, right? Because everything you do is preparing you for that final game in your regular season. So you got to have a hat on. You got to make sure that you're minimizing your open field tackles with the kid, and you got to just try to make sure that you're avoiding making lanes for him to hit.
Their defense looks pretty dominant as well, 4 shutouts throughout the season. So what stands out about the Quips defensively?
Very similar to last year. They're aggressive. I mean, that's the biggest thing that stands out. They love to send two, plugs inside with their linebackers. They keep their outside backers on the edge to try to cause and disrupt and create some havoc on the perimeter. And then they got 3 big guys. They got 3 guys that are on the D line that are just space eaters. You know, when they're in their 3-4, they jump to their 50 front. You know, those guys are people that, you know, just kind of take up those gaps and they engulf it, and they take up that space to kind of make you kick the ball different places that you want. So very similar to last year. You know, aggressive linebacker play, aggressive defensive back play, and three guys up front that really kind of hunker things down.
Biggest keys to victory?
I just think that we got to be able to move the ball early and quick. You know, I think last year we got off to that, and then I think that they, you know, kind of adapted a little bit and kind of were able to do some things to prevent some of the things that we were doing. So the key is we got to be consistent with it. You know, we got to be able to, you know, take what they give us and keep at it and keep moving. We can't turn the ball over. We turned the ball over a couple times last year, and that was tough for us. And then also we got to make sure that on a defense that, you know, we're very balanced to complement their balancedness. I think that the challenge that Aliquippa poses offensively is they're just so balanced. I mean, you know, there's games where they live in 21 personnel and 22 personnel, and they run the football every other play. And then there's games where they come out in 3-by-1 and 2-by-2, and they throw the ball all the time. So, you know, the key is us being multiple to combat their multipleness on offense.
And lastly, it is always special when your team advances to a championship, especially a marquee matchup against a historic opponent like Aliquippa. But what does this mean, not just to the players and the coaches, but to Belle Vernon area as a whole?
Well, I think anytime your team makes it that far, the community kind of enjoys and shares that. So I just think you know, I don't know what it means. I just know there's a heck of a lot of pride there. You know, I think one thing that we always tell kids, and especially when you're successful, you know, there are people that this is all they talk about. There are people that plan their week, grown adults that don't even have kids that play for the program, that plan their week around that Friday night game, that Saturday afternoon game. So, you know, I think that's the special part of it, is that there's a lot of support. There's a lot of people that are happy to see. There are a lot of people that are happy to see the success we had over the past 5 years, but to get back there and with the hopes of possibly bringing back that second WPIAL championship in program history, it's a great time for our community. But you know what? We got to kind of keep our nose to the grindstone, and we got to go out and finish.
Matt, thank you so much for taking the time. Congratulations for getting to Heinz Field. Good luck on Saturday.
Appreciate you guys.
That's Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards.
Dr. Scott Learn and his dental team have been caring for the community for over 20 years. Dr. Learn offers a wide variety of dental services, including oral exams, gingivitis treatments, crowns, veneers, and more. He even makes custom sports mouth guards. Call 724-537-3314 or visit scottellearndmd.com. Dr. Scott Learn General and Cosmetic Dentistry in Latrobe, giving you the confidence to enjoy your smile.
If you had to file an insurance claim, would your insurance coverage score a touchdown, or would you be sacked for a financial loss? At Stevenson Insurance Associates, you'll call the right play when it comes to your insurance coverage. Don't fumble the opportunity to score points with our customer service and superior low-cost policies. You need to make the right call to Stevenson Insurance Associates at 724-832-9889.
And welcome back to our championship preview edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We thank Matt Humbert of the Belle Vernon area Leopards. This is the first year, Flick, that you and I have worked closely with Coach Humbert, and he's a coach. He's also an athletic director, so his week is even busier than most. But I can tell you, he's a great interview, and I always enjoy talking to him. Very insightful, and he's been very helpful all season long. We appreciate everything that he's done.
Yeah, I mean, he's a sophisticated guy. I mean, you can tell when, when we
like smoking a pipe or something?
Yes, right. Yes. He has the pipe, maybe the monocle,
Oh, he should be doing that Saturday evening if all things go according to plan for the Leopards.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm sure he'll have maybe a cigar, not a pipe. Well, one of the two. But you can just tell he understands the game very, very well. He speaks very well, and he's always an interesting interview. And he took care of us a lot this year, and his staff mostly because he was, of course, on the field coaching when we went there to broadcast. So definitely excited to see what Belle Vernon can do against an Aliquippa team on Saturday. It's very athletic, and not only Saturday though, but into the future, and hopefully broadcasts here on WSN coming your way, and probably Belle Vernon basketball too, because I know one wants to think about that right now, of course, and I understand that, but they should have a really good basketball team too, headlined by that Whitlock guy.
Right. Yeah, you remember 2019, they played for a WPIAL football championship, came up short. They played for a WPIAL basketball championship, came up short. So guys like Devin Whitlock, certainly, they want to make 2021 a golden year. Let's take a look now at the rest of the brackets in the WPIAL playoffs. We'll begin with 3A, and it is another 1-versus-2 championship. Number 1, Central Valley. Wow, the Warriors have absolutely decimated the competition, even against number 4, Elizabeth Forward. 51-0. They defeated EF in the semifinals. So they are in the championship against number 2, North Catholic. As the Trojans, it was a little bit different. A 7-0 victory against number 3, Avonworth. So number 1, Central Valley. Number 2, North Catholic. North Catholic's had a great season. That being said, it would be shocking if they could defeat Central Valley.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I'm going to allow Sean to talk about that since, Sean, this is your classification with you coaching at South Allegheny. But, man, I think this might be the most lopsided in my eyes of the championships here.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, with the way the Central Valley Elizabeth Forward score, 51-0. I mean, that was, we got handled by Elizabeth this year, when we played them, but, they're very solid up front. So to see Central Valley go against them, and they did the same thing last year in the championship game, just beat the brakes off of them, and that's what they did again, so it's to see them against North Catholic. North Catholic, they went against Keystone Oaks in the first round, and, they had the bye to start. Then they went against Keystone Oaks, and Keystone Oaks gave them a game. That's who we lost to in the first round. They're very good up front, had nice, skilled player. I'm not sure that their running back played in that game against North Catholic, but they still, North Catholic came up 48-41, and moved on to the next round, to take on Avonworth.
How do you go from winning 48-41 to winning 7-0?
That's what I was thinking. When I saw the score, I thought the same thing. That's just crazy to play, because we've seen them. We kind of cross, counter with them all year through huddle. So, we saw a lot of North Catholic games, and, they had the ability to score a lot of points. So to see 7-0, Avonworth, they did a nice job defensively, just couldn't get anything going offensively. But going back to Central Valley, they're the team to beat in AAA. They're the standard, and they're going to be moving up to 4A next year. So, they'll be leaving. I think EF is leaving as well. So.
North Catholic, I believe, too, correct? I think they're moving to 4A.
I think so, yeah.
North
Central
Catholic
Valley,
has been moving up rapidly. I remember not too long ago, they won the single A championship.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, for those who don't know, there is a tie between Central Valley and Westmoreland County. Coach Lyons of Central Valley, formerly the Mount Pleasant area head coach.
Yeah.
So an interesting connection there. That will be the first of 3 championship games on Saturday at Heinz Field, a noon kickoff. Number 1, Central Valley. Number 2, North Catholic. We drop down to 2A, and it is the Friday championship matchup between number 5, Beaver Falls, and number 6, Sarah Catholic, a 5 o'clock kickoff at Heinz Field. So almost every bracket goes according to chalk, right? We talk about number 1 versus number 2 in 6A, 5A, 4A, 3A. It's far from chalk here in 2A. Number 5, Beaver Falls defeated Steel Valley 21-8. Now, keep in mind, Najai Burt for Steel Valley was out. That's the reason why the Ironmen got that number 1 seed. And then Stowe Rocks was upset by number 6, Sarah Catholic, 13-12, after Stowe Rocks had scored 123 points through the first 2 rounds. They were held to just a dozen in the loss to the Eagles. So number 5, Beaver Falls, a team that knows how to win championships. Number 6, Sarah Catholic. Should be a good one, if nothing else, to see that it's maybe a little bit of the unusual suspects when you looked at how this bracket played out.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool to see a number 5 and a number 6 seed. And I know in 5A, we ended up getting the 1 versus 2, but, leading up to that point, I thought there was some some great matchups and some upsets there as well. I would have really loved to see Bert play against Beaver Falls and see. I mean, I don't know. He's a difference maker. Whether they would have won that game, I don't know. But it's hard to say that they wouldn't have, honestly, with how good of a running back he is. Unfortunately, he was hurt, the week before against Southside. So I would have loved to see him play in that game. But should make for an interesting one. Again, Sarah Catholic's played some pretty low-scoring games the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that defense of theirs is that we played them in week 0, and I mean they were very good defensively. We also scrimmaged Still Valley, so to go against Still Valley and then to go against Sarah Catholic in back-to-back weeks. I mean they were definitely very good, and so it's a Beaver. I think they're going to have a little bit of a tough time. Sarah's defense has really stood on their head the last few weeks. If they can get their offense going a little bit, the Eagles could come out with the title.
Yeah, and remember, they had their offense going to the tune of 61 points in their first playoff game win against Neshannock. Again, 5 o'clock for the 2A championship on Friday at Heinz Field. And it'll all start at 2 o'clock with the 1A championship on Friday. And it's another one that's certainly not going according to chalk. Number 9, Our Lady of the Sacred Heart against number 3, Bishop Canevin. Remember, Olsh upset Clairton a couple weeks ago. Well, they continued their run, eking past number 5 Rochester 14-13 to make it to the championship game. Bishop Canevin, I think, opened some eyes, 24-7 defeating number 2 Cornell. So the number 9 Chargers against number 3 Crusaders. That will be at 2 o'clock. Our Lady of the Sacred Heart at this point seems like a team of destiny. That being said, Bishop Canevin, I don't even think people were picking them to make the playoffs heading into the season. So they've been a team of destiny going all the way back to the beginning, and Coach Johnston's done a great job in his second year. I don't think anyone would have picked Bishop Canevin to be the team that makes the run out of the Eastern Conference if you would have asked that about a year ago. But they've done a great job. Don't really know what to expect in this one because it's whatever team, I guess, remains hot basically should win this one.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool matchup. Again, a number 9 seed against a number 3 seed in Bishop Canevin, which, as you mentioned, Sean, not many people thought that they would come out of the division. And, it might not happen in the future when you have, Jeanette and Clairton in that division, if Jeanette can kind of reload. And of course they had to, see the upset of Clairton earlier, in the postseason by Olsh. So, both of these teams kind of a team of destiny, I think. So it should make for an interesting matchup between these teams in the single A championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked to a friend of mine. He's the offense coordinator at Clairton, and he said they were very good defensively, forced some turnovers, and it just gave him fits all night. So I believe that they are a team of destiny, and, we'll see if they can finish it off this week.
And 2 private schools could be a little bit of a rivalry as well. I know in other sports they're sort of rivals, so now that will carry over to the Gridiron as well. Again, that will get the entire weekend kicked off. 2 games on Friday starting at 2 o'clock, 3 games on Saturday starting at noon. That'll do it for the brackets. And obviously we want to thank our head coaches, John Ruane and Matt Humbert. But before we sign off, guys, any final thoughts heading into the championship week here at Heinz Field?
Now, this is just such a great weekend, and I'm sure Sean Benjamin will echo that, being a coach. But, just being able to kind of sit back, relax, and be able to watch these games, whether you're watching them on TV or whether you're going down to Heinz Field. I know a lot of, hearing from like ex-coaches and stuff, they go down, get a ticket, sit down and watch all the games. And maybe they don't even have a rooting interest. They just want to watch. And I think this is just really cool that the Steelers continue to, allow these games to be played at Heinz Field now over a 2-day stretch, allowing one more classification, I guess, to get in there as opposed to, having just 4 of the games at Heinz. And of course, it returns. All the championships return back to Heinz this year after they were kind of scattered over a couple of high schools last year because of COVID. So I think it's really neat. And I just want to, remind everybody, we've actually been asked, like, hey, are you guys video streaming the championships? Unfortunately, TV has exclusive rights for the video. The Trib has exclusive rights for the audio. So you got all that corporate stuff going on. So Sean Meyers and I will be there. I'm assuming Sean Benjamin will be there as a PT resident, right? Or at least the coach, watching the watching the games there. So, but we'll be there in terms of our coverage, social media, videos afterwards with interviews, and hopefully some joyous locker rooms. But that's kind of my final thoughts on the WPIAL Championship weekend, Sean.
Yeah, it's an exciting time of the year. I mean, every playoff season is a great time, and for the Warriors and Belle Vernon to move their way through the playoffs. And, who would have thought back when they played earlier in the year that these were the two teams in 4A and 5A. We knew that they were tough, but that in the end, these would be the two teams. It's a great thing, and it's going to be a great weekend all the way around. Everybody's goal all year is to get to Heinz and win that title. Now's the time.
And for the teams, even that come up short, for those players who are able to suit up and run out on Heinz Field, that is a memory they will never forget. Obviously, you want to have the memory of winning a championship, but just playing there, that is something that every person that participates, they will remember. We should also note, by the way, unlike most other sports, only the champions move on to the state playoffs. So if Penn-Trafford or Belle Vernon were to win, they would then move on to the state championships. If they come up short, their season comes to an end. That's the case for all of the teams 1A through 5A this weekend. So it's even more reason to, even more motivation to want to get that victory, to pursue the state championship as well. That'll do it here for this very special championship preview edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. I want to thank Sean Benjamin, our special guest host tonight. And as always, for Dan Flickinger, Sean Meyers signing off. Championships upcoming this Friday and Saturday. Good luck to Penn-Trafford and Belle Vernon, as we will be down there in attendance. And you can tune in to continuing coverage all weekend long, WestmorelandSports.com and the Westmoreland Sports Network. But for now, we're signing off for this special edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Go Leopards. Go Warriors.